I hadn't expected this to be so hard, this time of transition from preparing to die to living in limbo. I was told there was no visible cancer. Then again, 3 months later, no visible cancer. I remember asking my oncologist on the day I got the news the second time, what exactly does this mean? She said that it meant that they didn't see cancer on the last CAT scan and that for now she wouldn't recommend treatment. I left the cancer center in a daze. My wonderful and so knowledgeable, though much too busy oncologist, Dr. Smith, and my nurse Peggy, who for 2 years had so patiently answered my multitude of questions. My well-researched questions about which combinations of chemotherapy drugs were having the best results. What's being recommended to minimize the side effects of these drugs? Questions about intraperitoneal photodynamic therapy and intravenous investigational mirroring monoclonal antibody studies. I could count on Dr. Smith and Peggy to answer all my questions. This time, I didn't pull the list from my purse because I had no visible cancer. I walked out into the Albuquerque sun stunned. I searched for those feelings of elation which I had expected to have somewhere inside me. Instead, I found the same question: what exactly does this mean? I had recurrent ovarian cancer. It was the killer, or one of them, not the best cancer to have if one were going about the business of picking a cancer. The year before, when the cancer reoccurred, I had gone to MD Anderson Cancer Center for a second opinion. The doctor there was shocked that I was still working. I was told with sensitivity that it was time to get clear on what I wanted to do with the time I had left. The doctor told me that there were no new treatments available to me now, but if they could keep me alive for 2 years, quite possibly some new, less toxic drug options would be available. These treatments could not be made available to me now. They were being used on mice. And in fact, she shared excitedly, they had almost eradicated ovarian cancer in mice. I thought this was hilarious. I had the image of a tiny female mouse with a hospital gown, her belly shaved, the little mouse oncologist standing over her, making a long vertical incision, performing a hysterectomy, and continuing snips here and there of more mouse tissue to send to the lab to see if it were cancerous. Then I saw a chemo room. The room full of chairs, each with a reclining mouse, little arm outstretched, hooked up to an IV. The miniature chemo room filled to capacity with mice patients and family members or a friend, sitting by them gently stroking their forehead or holding the emesis pan. Although I could tell by the look on the doctor's face that she questioned the appropriateness of my laughter, I was so thankful for the comic relief that these images brought on my intense, short visit to this well-respected cancer facility. And now it's over a year since my appointment at MD Anderson, and I have no visible cancer. I had gotten everything, or nearly everything, in order. Beneficiary for my slim public school retirement, beneficiary for my even smaller IRA, directive to physicians, power of attorney papers. I had even spent an afternoon carefully affixing masking tape name labels on the bottom of furniture so it would be easier to give my things away. The antique oak bench, which as a child I would set my coat on before climbing the stairs to the living area in my grandparents' San Francisco home. This would go to my sister Margaret and her husband Chris. It would look beautiful in their new home. The green secretary I had hauled from our family cabin in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This desk with the textured Japanese picture of a boat gently gliding on a river. How many nights as a child I had drifted to sleep, lulled by the water in that image. This would go to Ellen, my soul's supporter, whose laughter could always bring me back to the present moment on this journey with cancer. It would be perfect in a massage office. Melissa's beautiful table, lovingly fashioned from the most precious of woods. Melissa's whose life was taken so early and whose beauty shone through in her craft. The table that I used for years as an altar would go to her sister, Helen. I had already begun giving other smaller special things away at gift-giving times. Things that were special to me and that I knew would be special to those that I gave them to. It's not that I wanted to die, yet I was certainly preparing to die, getting things in order to die. Ellen and I even picked this house thinking that the huge back room would accommodate a hospital bed if it were needed as the disease progressed. The hospital bed placed so that I could watch the birds feeding from the west window and the rolling hills from the east window. The hospital bed brought in to provide bodily comfort when one goes into a coma before death. I had asked Peggy how I would die, what I could expect to experience as the cancer progressed. I had this question among others on one of my lists. She had answered this question so honestly. I'm still thankful for her honesty. I was told that as the cancer progressed and filled my pelvic cavity, the cancer and the accumulating fluids would most likely impact my kidneys and I would go into a coma as my kidneys shut down. I decided on cremation and was considering first donating my body to UNM medical school so new doctors could cut me up and maybe learn a thing or two new about ovarian cancer. I'd finally retired from 24 years of teaching children with special needs, retired with an unbelievably wondrous send-off. I had felt so fortunate to have found a vocation I truly loved, work I continued to learn from and grow with over the years, the giving and receiving in beautiful balance. I had worked through my initial and then reoccurrent chemo treatments with so much support from my coworkers and from the families whose children I taught. Yet I felt the change in my focus as I truly got in my mind and felt in my body that I wouldn't be here that much longer. I knew it was time to stop teaching. I have been asked so many times by professionals and by others who have cancer how I was fighting the battle. Everyone expected I would be fighting against cancer, this battle against my enemy, cancer. As many times as I was asked this, I found that I could never relate to it. My experience was not like this at all. My experience is one of surrender into healing. I wasn't taking up arms against the enemy. I was letting go into the deepest well of surrender towards healing. I knew true healing could take many, many forms, and I knew one of them was dying. I really was preparing to die. Affairs in order, no surprises for anyone to take care of after my death. I was doing my best to stay current in my relationships, giving and receiving incredible outpourings of love and appreciation, spiritually deepening, and now, no visible cancer. I think I spent the fall a bit depressed. Depression was new to me, so I wasn't really sure at the time. I still functioned okay. I still got up every morning and greeted the day as best I could. But something had shifted inside of me with all my preparations for dying. And something was not shifting back with the news of more living, and I felt stuck. I felt as if I had a foot in both worlds, one foot in the world of the living and one foot in the world of the dying. I really thought that I was dying. It's not even that I wanted to die. I was just focused in that direction. The act of shifting that focus is the deepest surrender I've ever experienced. What has been confusing about this is that this is how so many speak when they talk of dying, this deep surrender. I'd had many opportunities to be with family members and to be with friends as they died, and I could see how much passing was in just another part of life. Now I find myself focused on living and trying to do this with a full embrace. Many times lately I've fallen short. I thought that hearing the news of the cancer reoccurring would be the most difficult transition I would have to make. I had no idea that hearing the news that there was no visible cancer would be more difficult. This is hard for me to admit to myself, and it's hard to try to put into words too. I have experienced a death of sorts, a death of many of the ways I have known myself to feel and to be, So much has been altered in my life, so much stripped away. My health, my body as I've known it, my work in the world, my firm footing on my spiritual path. It seems a bittersweet surrender, this living in limbo. I've lived enough years to know that in retrospect, deeper understanding will come. As for now, I take deep breaths, say a prayer, cry, express my loving, stub my toe, watch the sunset, laugh, feel impatient, walk in the pinyons, schedule my next CAT scan, see a good movie, feel sadness, meditate, pay the bills, be very silly, watch the birds feeding, share deeply with loved ones, share mundanely with loved ones. I think it's called living. It's been almost 2 months since I wrote this monologue, and now, just having found out that the cancer is back, I make the transition from living in limbo to living with cancer. Once again, I'm making treatment choices. It is also a very challenging time. Ellen left me a card on the kitchen counter soon after I got the news. The message touched me deeply, and I wanted to share it with you. The card had the image of a snowy egret just beginning its flight from a pool of water, the bird's wings not quite yet outstretched. The inscription below read, "When you come to the edge of all that you know, you must believe in one of two things. There will be earth upon which to stand, or you will be given wings."